Welcome to Hobbit Hoopla.
Hoopla!
The unofficial podcast of Middle Earth. The greatest podcast ever to talk about Lord of the Rings. I think, in my opinion.
Okay, well.
There's no better Lord of the Rings podcast out there, and I challenge anybody to prove me wrong. We're here again for the third week in a row to talk about the wonderful Lord of the Rings movies, closing it out this week with The Return of the King. Debatably, the greatest Lord of the Rings movie ever made, and also debatably the greatest movie ever made.
It's possible.
Some people are out there saying it's the best movie ever made. Are those people me? Maybe. We'll talk about it.
Oh, a little bit of tease.
Joining me, as always, for this wonderful Hobbit Hoopla adventure is the lore master, Andy Smith.
Hey, Jamie, Andy Smith here, connoisseur of many nerdy things, DC, Marvel, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and I will say that Lord of the Rings is my second favorite movie of all time.
Oh my God, behind?
Well,
another Return of the Jedi, Star Wars. But also followed by Last Samurai. I just happen to love Last Samurai, okay? But yes, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King is my second favorite movie, and I'm so excited to talk about it. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Is that the Tom
I can't wait.
Cruise Last Samurai?
It is.
Oh,
it
wow,
is.
I've never seen it.
Good thing we're going to be reviewing it in about 3 weeks.
That's right, everybody. Tune in. Let's say October 4th for the Last Samurai Hoopla.
Okay.
Of course, it's not just going to be me and Andy. You guys can already see and hear the other people joining us. It's the master of all things Middle Earth, the historian of the elves, Chris Pio.
Historian of the Elves. What a title.
Wow, that is cool.
I mean, elves live a long time, so to be the historian of the elves is just a monumental achievement. Chris Pio here, historian of the elves, happy to be talking about what possibly is the greatest movie ever made. Well, maybe I'll talk my way into it. Maybe I'll talk my way out of already believing that. But excited to be here talking about the completion of the trilogy and one of the finest trilogies it is.
Indeed. And joining us to fulfill his oath.
Yes.
Charged to him decades ago.
What say you?
Join a podcast to talk about movies. The ghost of Jake Laxer is joining us.
Here's a fun ghostly fact for you. There are as many Oscars won in this film as there are decades in Bilbo's birthday. How's that? How fun of a fact is that from the grave?
That's fun.
That's very fun. Flavorful, informative. Wow.
11 Oscars.
Yeah. Jake Laxer, your lover of all things TV and movies. How's that for a fact when I just pulled up IMDb? Yeah, pulled that one up on the fly, and it worked out just perfectly, kind of like how this podcast works. So we're going to keep on crushing, and we're going to keep on cruising.
Riding on the back of the elephant, Jake comes in to start the podcast.
Damn right.
Hell yeah. Keep up that energy for the whole podcast, please, Jake, because we need fun facts left and right, because we're going to talk about all the greatest parts of this movie. So thank you all for tuning in for this episode of the Hoopla podcast. You can follow us on all of the social medias where you can check out fun little clips and everything. Chris, where can they do that?
If you want to stay up to date, catch up on all of our latest releases, and join the discourse, you can go ahead and follow us at Hoopla Podcasts on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Definitely follow us over there on the TikTok. We've got some fun new video ideas for you guys, as well as clips from the show. So be sure to follow us at Hoopla Podcasts on X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.
Indeed. And cheers to you, my friend Andy. What do you have to drink there, buddy?
Well, I have the official White Wizard Hoopla podcast mug here. So if you want a cold beverage here in the cold weather outside, go to hooplapodcastnetwork.square.site. And as you're drinking to our White Wizard, he'll turn up there with you. I feel like Pippin or Mary in that
Now,
moment.
Andrew,
Hell
if I
yeah.
could get a little bit
smoking a
better of a
little,
visual there, I think is that Gandalf turned upside down?
He is, because as you're turning the mug upside down, you get to see his full face. The White Wizard himself that, heroically took Pippin out on the horse and fended off the Nazgul all alone, saving one of my favorite characters, Faramir, from a certain doom.
I was more looking for you to just kind of advertise the foam, the head of the beer.
Oh, okay.
Being the beard.
I poured it
love
about
it. Let's
20
talk.
minutes ago. I thought you were trying to take me right into some of the best Gandalf scenes. Go, Jamie.
Let's get right into some of the best Gandalf scenes and some of the best scenes with all of our other wonderful heroes going out to save.
So we're just going to talk about the whole
Earth.
movie, the best scenes?
Yeah. That's
great.
We're going to talk for the next 4.5 hours about all of the best parts, which is every single second of this movie. We got Frodo and Sam finishing their journey through Mordor to Mount Doom. We've got Gandalf doing incredible Gandalf things all over the place. And we've got Aragorn building an army with his pals Legolas and Gimli. They also go on a little side quest to get ghosts. This movie has everything you could ever want and more. And I was teasing it at the beginning, is the best movie ever made. I think it might be the best movie ever made.
I think it might be the best movie ever made.
An hour and a half
It's definitely
into this
one of
movie,
the best movies ever made.
and I was like, this movie is already perfect, and I still have 3 more hours of incredible movie to watch. And I loved every gosh darn second of it.
Right?
My God. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 11-1 out of 11-1 Hooplas.
Yes.
Hoopla!
Okay.
So 4 perfect scores. We should just kind of end the podcast
let's
right
end-
here.
end-
I think
I mean,
that's-
you end it with 11-1, and then you move on.
Exactly.
Hey, that would make
We
sense.
sail to the
Hey.
west.
Of course, everybody knows the best part of the whole movie is Legolas surfing down the trunk of an Oliphant after taking it down single-handedly.
Yo, that shit was tight.
Incredible. That still only counts as 1.
Oh, great. Awesome stuff.
Best line in any
That's a
movie.
great one. That's a great one. That's a great one.
I know we got lots to talk about, but right off the bat, I think, Jamie, that you highlighted one of the most important parts of this movie, and that it still retains a lot of the charm from the first and second films. This is inevitably the darkest of the 3 films, not only because half of the characters spend most of the time in dark corners and corridors and, trapped and in danger, billowing smoke coming from the east. Yes, it's very dark, but that's a very funny part. There's tiny little bits of charm before the battles. They have the drinking battle between Gimli and Legolas, where Legolas barely starts to feel anything. And
And
there's just
starting to feel something in my finger.
Exactly, a tingling sensation.
Yeah.
Even the Sam and Frodo story, there's so much charm between the two, mostly coming from Sam's side because Frodo's kind of a bit of a zombie in this particular film, for good reason, and they explain that very well. A heroic zombie, and of course it's all part of the way that he gets turned against Sam by Smeagol. But even Smeagol, even the Andy Serkis scenes, like when he's talking to himself in the pond water at the very beginning of the film, and we don't like stats, do we? No, we don't. It's just riddled with so much of the original childlike fantasy that Tolkien's writing was used to.
But at the same time, along with that, Chris, there's a grandness and epicness to, along with those smaller moments. Just how do you, after Two Towers, with one of the best battle sequences I think we've seen, and to date, I mean, if it was 2002 in cinema, in terms of like actual battle sequences where you see the armies fight over a 30-minute period, that was epic. But then how do you crescendo that into something that works and isn't just, it's a kind of a remake of Helm's Deep? And the Battle of Pelennor Fields, with the armies of Mordor moving in on this desperate city that's going up in smoke, but then you finally get Rohan to come in and start winning the battle, but then it extends by then having other armies come in, and like it just such an epic moment. And then also towards the end of the movie with the full men against Mordor themselves, like there's small moments, there's epic moments, there's moments you kind of want to cry, you know, like you would.
Oh, there's no wanting
like
to
for
cry.
4.5 hours, just wanting to cry.
It's I would say emotionally draining. That movie is emotionally draining, but also inspiring, because like there's so many, once again, inspirational, heroic moments by every character, and I think that's why it's my favorite or second favorite movie of all time. Maybe the throne room sequence.
We almost got him.
Maybe I do like it more than the throne room sequence and Return of the King.
For the end.
Return of the Jedi.
Jake, how many times did you cry while watching this movie?
I once, because I just could not stop crying. It was just so beautiful.
It was one sustained
cry.
Yeah, it's like I was pretty dehydrated after the film, to be honest.
That's like does a straw have one
drip
hole
as he was
two?
watching?
Are you crying one time or many times if you just cry the whole time?
Yeah, honestly, it's just such a brilliant masterpiece. The culmination of all the Lord of the Rings into this one film. Also, you know, I think something that my mind was just drifting to is, and this sort of speaks beyond just the singular film, but this is, in my opinion, the best trilogy in all of Hollywood. In terms of 3 consecutive films that there was never a point throughout the 3 movies which I felt like there was one that was undervalued. There was one that didn't quite meet the same level of the other films. It was just constant, brilliant directing, storytelling, choreography, character development. I mean, everything about The Lord of the Rings is outstanding. And why not end it with a fucking banger like Lord of the Rings, Return of the King?
Wow.
I mean, absolutely. This movie is just... it's icing on the cake, and then there's fireworks, and then, like, you know,
oh my god,
fireworks
you're gonna burn your tongue. This movie's so good.
Yeah, like I would set myself on fire and jump off a building. That's how much I love this movie.
I think you understood that scene wrong. I don't think he was happy when he did that.
Jake as Denethor.
Yeah.
And here passes Jake Laxer.
That's the ghost you were introducing me as earlier, Jake as Denethor.
You do have some big Denethor energy, Jake. I've always said that about you.
Big Denethor vibes.
I've seen you eat cherry tomatoes, and it
is similar. Yeah.
And there's always a little boy singing next to you. Where do you find those boys that sing while you eat? That's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. It's absolutely wild.
Who is behind?
I love that song.
Well, who doesn't?
It's a beautiful song.
We need to be doing this podcast. Everyone loves this movie. What are we going to say that hasn't been said?
Let's talk about Merry and Pippin in this movie, because this is the movie where the two of them really shine. They were more or less just kind of along for the ride for the first movie. You know, they were captured at the end of the first movie, and so they were just kind of like the goal.
Literally along for the ride.
Yeah, true. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli then had to go, you know, find them, and the plot just kind of
they were the plot device to get those, you know, Aragorn, Gimli. Off
but now in
the races.
as the story comes to a close, Merry and Pippin have now come into their own as heroes, and both in their own way fight to save Middle Earth and fight to save their friends. We have, and that was going to be the point where I can never remember which is which, but Pippin?
People say that, but I don't know. They're very distinctive faces, right? Yes, they're both short.
Yeah, they're short. And
okay, they look like they could be cousins. I don't know.
I can do it.
You mean
when
the
I'm
twins?
watching the movies, but and like recalling scenes. But like if you put 2 actor photos right next to each other, I'd be like, no way.
Yeah.
Okay. Which one's Dominic? Which one's Billy? I have
which
no
character
idea.
is which. I just don't know which name is which. But
Sure.
The one who was singing the beautiful song as he goes to save Faramir from getting burnt alive. Heroically.
Yeah, that was amazing.
The other one who joins in on the fight.
That's Pippin. This other one is Merry. I'll just help you right
the
now.
The other one, the short guy.
Speaking
who joins
of
with
the moment,
Eowyn in the fight. and fights heroically by her side, saving people's lives, stabbing some orcs, doing all that stuff.
Love that.
Two incredible character arcs, individual and recognizable character arcs from Merry and or Pippin. Incredible.
With a lot of deleted content. I mean, even in the theatrical releases, you see a much bigger intervention from those two hobbits. But in the extended edition, not only do you get the entire introduction scene, the 6 minutes of talking to Saruman on the top of Barad-dûr.
Yeah.
I love that intro scene.
Orthanc. Sorry.
Yeah.
And that's such a phenomenal scene. The company rolls up on two hobbits in a flooded area. And if you're not watching the extended scene, you miss, again, some of that charm, but also a very important scene with Saruman. How is, in the theatrical release, how is Saruman defeated? Where is he? What happens? So
and also one of the other best lines by Gimli, and they're smoking the pipe weed or whatever it was. And he's like, and they're smoking. And I'm pretty sure that line was what they based all of the Hobbit movies off of. They're like, we just need a bunch of Gimlis running around.
The salted pork is particularly good. Just good stuff.
I love that Saruman scene became like a total meme across the internet with the trolling. If you guys know what I'm talking about, that's one of the best YouTube videos of like 2005 or whatever.
Oh, way back.
Yeah, way back when. We have Saruman on the top the building. He goes, and then Gimli's like, take him out. I've heard enough.
So actually, fun fact about that Christopher Lee scene when he's up on the top of Orthanc, they in the script when he gets stabbed, I don't know who asked him, but they said, "Okay, what sound are you gonna make for when you get stabbed?" And he said, "Oh, I know that because Christopher Lee has a past." Apparently in some sort of secret service MI6 organization in the UK. And he said he knows what it sounds like to get stabbed in the back. So that is the sound that he made. Also, another fun fact, his cousin is Ian Fleming, who's the author of James Bond. And some say that Ian Fleming was partially writing James Bond about his cousin Christopher Lee. Fact check me, Jake Laxer. Let me know.
I'll just give you the fact. You can just take it and run with it.
How about that?
I'll tell you this, another fun Christopher Lee fact for you. This man was so committed to Lord of the Rings, he would take any role, but he watched it every single year of his life. He would have a rewatch of Lord of the Rings. Or he would read it. Excuse me.
He read the books.
But he is a wizard. So anything's possible.
He wanted to be Gandalf for sure.
Yeah. If we're just doing fun Christopher Lee facts, he knew Tolkien. He was friends with J.R.R. Tolkien.
Wild.
That's great.
I did not know that.
He had discussed. Tolkien said that he wanted Christopher Lee to play Gandalf in the movies. Unfortunately, he was too evil looking, I guess.
But going back to the actual movie, what did you guys think about the change there in the extended versions rather than really in the theatrical? Gandalf says he's no power here anymore, and he looks around and he stays in Orthanc. Did you like it? It was fun like seeing that sequence. I get maybe why they took it out for like time. It's pretty long, but what do you guys think?
I love that scene. I mean, I'm an extended aficionado, enjoyer, whatever you want to call it.
Extended aficionado. I like long things.
No, an extended version of aficionado. I enjoy them more, even if just introducing them to someone. But I think taking that scene, it's 6.5 minutes out of the theatrical release was a travesty. There's one other scene I want to talk about later on that is truly a travesty for being deleted. But we'll talk about that when we get there.
Oh,
what do you think, Jake?
Are you a Zack Snyder 4-hour Justice League fan?
I only
Mr.
like the.
That's
I'm only an
cut
aficionado of
into-
good extended films.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay, well, the
yeah.
extended version of the Justice League is better. Anyways, over to you.
Anyways, let's talk about this movie because we still have a lot to talk about. And I want to ask a question to you, the extended aficionado, Christopher
Ooh.
Pio,
Wow.
cousin of Christopher Lee, right? Is that how names work?
Well,
I don't know.
That is absolutely how first names work.
I
Yeah.
hope
Last
that's true.
episode, you discussed how you thought the Sam and Frodo scenes were, to quote you,
I know it would come
boring
back.
as fuck and a waste of time.
I knew this was coming.
All right,
How
let's
did
hear
you
it.
feel
Let's hear it.
about the Sam and Frodo story in this movie?
Picture this, right?
Mm.
Such a great movie, start to finish. Everything is so awesome. Wait, where are my notes on this? Oh no!
Oh, no.
Oh,
Oh,
man.
no. Be prepared.
Oh,
Be
no.
prepared.
This man lost his
Someone
notes.
vamp. I'll talk about Sam and Frodo because,
Where
as
are
I
my
said
notes?
last week, an incredible storyline. We get to see
Yeah.
in the second movie, The Two Towers, we get to see the decline of Frodo as the ring
Found it.
begins to take his power, as we start to get some inklings of infighting and that beautiful friendship that we have between Sam and Frodo, the greatest friendship in all of Middle-earth. And now as we approach the end of their journey, as they get to Mordor, as they're making their way to Mount Doom, the ring has fully taken over Frodo. He's like 90% gone. The only 10% he has left is that pure Frodo goodness, power of will, keeping him going. And the other 90% of his ability is coming from his friend Sam, who no matter what is there for him. I know I can't carry that ring, but I can carry you, Mr. Frodo.
Except
My
that time where he
God.
leaves.
I cried. I cried at that point. Jake, did you cry at that point?
I was crying for 3 hours at that point. I mean,
4.5.
yeah.
All right, I found my notes on this, and I'm doubling down. Think about this: the Battle of Minas Tirith. It's the White City. It's the fields of Pelennor. It's everything. Gandalf is out there just whipping his staff, whipping his sword like he's a freaking
Doing what?
25-year-old ninja out here. What?
Continue.
Pippin comes out of nowhere and sees Gandalf's in trouble. Saves Gandalf with a sword stab right through
it's Pippin.
Uruk-hai's chest. Yes, Pippin is with Gandalf. Yes.
Pippin.
Do you want me to? Do you need a corresponding Mary scene?
No, you're good.
to
You're good. You're good. You're good.
The
Powder
battle is waging. It's hot. It's heated at Minas Tirith. They can't break through the front gate. But then, Grond, and they bring the wolf head up to blow through the front gate.
That's a pretty
so
wild
cool.
scene. Yeah.
Great special effects. Very, 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 very cool to see. And then Gimli with the company of Aragorn and Legolas. They've just been through Dimehold, whatever. What's it called? Dime. The mountain.
Diagon Alley.
Diagon Alley. They've just been through Diagon Alley. Yes, they got their owls. They got their wands from Ollivander. No, it's after the. It's after they
Isn't
go
it like
through the mountain.
Darrenhold or something? Yeah.
It's like Dimehold or something. They've already gone through. They've gotten the army, and they're just sitting there. That's more of that little charm, the little humor. They're just sitting as the ships go by,
Yeah.
and they say, "You cannot go any further." And then Gimli messes up Legolas's
Yeah, he
warning
pushes
shot.
it.
It's so
That's
great.
funny.
And then there's a huge charge of this ghost army, an army of traitors, and then they take the ships, and then this is a whole cool battle, and then Frodo's walking into a cave. Wonder if there's any danger in there.
Wow.
That's your
Boo.
response?
I
When he's
You
walking into Shelob's
suck.
cave?
It's sticky.
That's terrifying. That's the most terrifying moment in Lord of the Rings.
Look, I'm not saying that it's not good
That's
cinema.
thrilling.
You're
It's-
missing the point. You're missing the point. I'm not saying it's not.
So it's bad
good.
editing, is what
It's
you're
not
saying.
bad editing. No. It is boring by comparison. It is the least favorable part of the trilogy.
Holy
It's just
shit.
now things get more exciting. Obviously, the Shibboleth fight is very, very cool. The fact that they get captured and they have to work their way out of that orc tower, also very cool. But it's just so much of the mopey zombiness brings down the entire miasma of the film. It's just all this cool kingly stuff, this battle, this I mean Eowyn's
you
out
are
in
a
the fields,
fool.
courage
Good
for
thing,
your friends,
good thing
courage,
movies are subjective.
courage, and then it's sticky. Smeagol, what do I do?
Fool of Ohio.
Oh no.
That serves that dramatic difference between the intense fight that Minas Tirith and the secret
because that's where the true
through,
fight is.
Again,
because
I
it
understand.
reminds you that this fight is not just the battle that's going on.
Yes.
There is a bigger
There's
fight
a macro,
that needs to be
there's
happening.
a micro. That is the reason that he alone with Sam took the ring. It had to be a small covert operation. I understand all that. I understand the thematic differences. But you asked me, and I'm doubling down. It is the most boring part of the trilogy.
Wait,
I'm gonna
that part you're
argue-
saying is the most boring of the film, or are you just saying that like
Well, we're talking about the film,
Return
Return of the King,
like,
right
and you're
now,
also
but-
talking about grander, a part of the trilogy. It's
Yeah,
just that
that
Sam and
storyline
Frodo
is.
storyline.
I'm sorry.
And that's, no, I mean
subjectively,
subjective.
it is the least interesting. I'm not saying it's not good
Yeah.
or important. It's the least interesting, and it
if
just
we're
goes
picking-
wrong.
Sure.
You're
if we're
still
picking
wrong.
storylines in this film that we could just toss out the window, it's going to be the Denethor story for me for sure. If we have to pick one, because quite honestly, whatever. In regards to actual importance of
I think I might have to leave
things
this
proceeding.
podcast group.
Yeah,
Like,
in
what
terms
is
of
going
importance of
on
things
what is
right
proceeding,
now?
happening?
if you take the rising action of the battle scenes and reaching the climactic point at which you just need to take a pause from everything, you perfectly transition over to the chaotic, frenzied, ominous situation that Sam and Frodo are now having to go through while climbing through Shelob's lair. I mean, that's just terrifying in of itself.
Oh, it's so scary.
And it's also kind of a breath of fresh air for the viewer. So to if we
That's
constantly just had rising action, this would be like Adam Sandler's Uncut Gems. It would just not be enjoyable to watch. It would just be constantly stressful, and the entertainment wouldn't be what it is. It's because you're allowed to breathe, because you're allowed to digest the battle scenes between. I mean, do I need to list all the things off? Ghouls, elves, dwarfs, orcs,
Magic rings.
ghosts, magic rings, dragons. Like you need to take a breath from
Giant
that and just
beacons.
giant. You need to take a breath from that from the giant war elephants, and just end up in a lair where it's just two guys getting stuck in a web.
I do think I do think
well
that
said,
is
Jake. Very well said.
Thank you.
And I would agree. I mean, I think that this movie does really well is has the 3 different plot lines happening at the simultaneously, but for 4.5 hours, that is really difficult to edit together and make it feel natural in terms of transitions and cuts and so much is happening, but you always know what's happening, what's going on in the other storylines. So they're really gripping, and like there's like clear milestones in terms of where the story's trying to get to. So having, Aragorn and Rohan, mustering the troops and the army, and then the undead, and then you have all the stuff we learn about in Minas Tirith. I think that actually might be my favorite part of the storyline, which is Gandalf with Pippin getting to Minas Tirith, and to the point of realizing Denethor is not going to act, and we're going to light the beacons. And can I make a quick cut to my favorite? I'm gonna say my favorite scene in the Lord of the Rings trilogy is the beacons being lit.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
my
It's
god,
just
it's so beautiful.
Epic. The music.
Epic.
The music is so wonderful.
Oh wow, the music.
And it's heroic. And when it ends up with Aragorn say the beacons are lit, like it's just
Gondor calls for aid.
and Rohan will answer. Like that is such an epic moment, and it's just so medieval, right? It's like hitting me at historic vibes, fantasy vibes. Anyways, I love that. Also, it's just beautiful how they got these shots without drones You know, they're taking helicopters, I'm assuming, over top of these just beautiful. And I'm gonna go to New Zealand just to see that mountain range. Okay,
Can't wait.
One day,
my God.
like,
Ooh, and we'll all be there with you. A Hoopla trip to New Zealand.
and come with us. Come with us.
That would be a bad
Everyone's
thing.
invited. If you subscribe to us on Patreon, which we don't have, we'll bring you to New Zealand with us. I do,
Or
have
meet you
to-
there.
That's the level 3 tier. It costs $20.
Yeah,
What a
$20
deal.
one-time fee. Jake, I do have to tell you that you're a dumb idiot for thinking the Denethor storyline should have been cut or could have been cut. Because obviously you're a fool for thinking that Denethor serves as showing us what the men
What humans
can't
can
fall into
yeah.
being. We have this fight that's a very clear good versus evil fight for the majority of the Lord of the Rings. We have Mount Doom, so clearly evil. We have Sauron and his army of evil, 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 fighting against the men and the elves and dwarves who are good. You know, these are the good guys. And we need to have something to show us that there is not purely good in men. There is an opportunity for the men to fall into this evil. There is a gray area between the good of men and the badness of Sauron. And we see what happens if you stop fighting for what you need, if you stop fighting for the freedom of people, for the safety of your town, and if you give in to any sort of any amount of evil, if you let that into yourself, you lose the ability, you lose what makes you men and what you're fighting for. And we see that through Denethor, and without it, it's just purely good versus purely evil, and that's not an interesting story.
Perhaps my qualm with it is the fact that because he's so arrogant. Oh yeah. Oh, that's fun. That's very nice. That's very nice.
I think that's well
because
said.
Denethor's so arrogant and egocentric, I think I have difficulty as a viewer, and maybe this is just the character being in of itself who he is. But I've difficulty flocking to that and relating to it, and then like wanting to view and watch that corruption sort of unfold. I think if perhaps he was a little bit
like more mild in his
less
approach.
a little bit more tame towards his second son, then maybe I could be about what he is. But because he's such a dick, I can't. It's hard for me to buy in. It's
like
really
that,
hard, honestly hard for me to buy in.
I'm going to take a half measure and kind of agree with both of you. I think Jake's right in the sense that Denethor's storylines go on far too long and show too much of the evil of man.
Maybe that's why they cut it from the theatrical cut.
Right?
That's
what I'm saying.
point.
So I think Jake is definitely right that they should have chopped it up maybe more even in the theatrical point, showing the progression of how much he really hates Faramir to the point where he would burn him alive while also dousing himself in oil. It seems a little zealot. It seems too far gone when you've already shown that men are evil in such a great and tame and relatable almost way. But then he literally falls off of the top of Minas Tirith while on fire after trying to burn his own son. It also leaves some weird room where like Gandalf is the only leader on the battlefield at Minas Tirith, yet Pippin's just able to kind of roll down there and be like, brother, you gotta come help. There's a guy being burned alive. That part could maybe have just been cut entirely, and maybe the Denethor storyline would have made a lot more sense being more tame than what it was. So I kind of agree with both of you.
Yeah, honestly, that's kind of interesting. A point with Gandalf. I'm just like honing in on that one moment, Chris, because like Gandalf now is the de facto leader of Gondor in this moment because Denethor is so self-consumed,
right?
And it makes sense. Like he clear, and they didn't have this in the theatrical, right? All the build up with Boromir, and when he knows that Boromir is dead, then he just degrades as a man, as a father, and he almost blames Faramir
as
in different ways.
Would.
But with Faramir going out with all of the leaders of Minas Tirith, and they all get killed off. Then you have the White Wizard there, who's just going back and forth across the line, getting the troops to stand their ground. Then he's going back up to see Denethor, then back down again. That happens a few times.
Yeah.
But that is kind of interesting. Like, they don't show. I mean, they're alluding to that there's no leadership left. But I wonder, was that the case? Were there other, I don't know, captains of the guard that are there? It seemed like, no, this is an abandoned city with an army, but an abandoned city, because leadership, they're so self-consumed, they're hiding away, and he would rather kill himself and his son and the rest of the people at the top than go and try and help and fight their way out.
Maybe if when Gandalf whacks Denethor up the head,
I like that,
whacks him in the back also. If that had been the end of Denethor in the movie, perhaps that storyline would have come to a perfect little ending right there. Faramir still comes back on the horse and he lives and everything, but maybe the whole burning pyre scene was unnecessary. I don't know. I know it's important, but
let Denethor redeem himself after that.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, maybe
that's a take. Let
that's
it
a
be
take.
redeemed
That's
after
a
that.
That's a take. I noodle on that one.
If I could see if I could see just a little bit of neutralization of Denethor, then
they kind of have that at the. I mean, Gandalf says he'll remember in the end, Faramir, that he loves you, and then he looks and sees that yes, Faramir is alive, and that's his ending. I like that as a conclusion to his storyline, to see there was some humanity left in him, but at the same time he was too far gone to be the leader of Gondor.
I want to say there was a moment where Denethor looks at Faramir on the pile of sticks and his eye does twitch.
Yeah,
I want to say there is a
he's
moment.
So delusional. He's so like, at least that's what
he just he ignores it entirely. So
maybe we can write some Hoopla fanfic where Denethor doesn't jump to his death, but instead he is redeemed. Look for that in your favorite bookstore.
Ooh, I know we like to
5th.
I know we like to rewrite TVs.
I'm not rewriting any Lord of the Rings.
We dare not touch this.
Perfect. These are the sacred texts.
This is the sacred texts.
One thing I think gets lost a lot is not only is there a scene that was deleted from the theatrical called The Decline of Gondor. After his failed meeting with Denethor, Gandalf tells Pippin the history of Gondor. That's kind of the first thing right when they get there before any battle has started. But then later that night, once the smoke starts billowing out of the east, and that's scene,
cool. Yeah,
that one is left in the theatrical where Gandalf is explaining to Pippin, it's too late to leave now. Help will have to come to us. That's such a cool scene, and I think it's definitely the turning point of the film. Obviously, we understand that there's been a danger brewing for a long, long time. But one of my favorite things that Gandalf says in the deleted scene that you only see in the extended, he says something about once the shadow of Mordor reaches us. He's talking about putting the smoke over to block out the sun so the orcs can move much freer. Yeah. Shadow of Mordor, Jake, you got your eyes perked up. There you go.
Do you mean he was referring to the video game?
Yes. That's exactly what I mean. Yeah.
Gandalf is a huge gamer, dude.
I do appreciate that. I appreciate that though, Chris. Like they don't explain, don't give that context during, in the theatrical, but that's such an important mechanism of Sauron's power, right? He can create these demonized elves, right, that become orcs, and he can have thousands and thousands of them, but they can't move under the night. That's why Saruman was so powerful, because he was able to get the Uruk-hai, able to travel during the day. And they don't actually mention it, but then after you see that scene and you actually see all of the Osgiliath scenes, there's just a looming storm over top. But it even highlights when Sam and Frodo are at the base of the mountain of Mount Doom, and they can see, even there's light here, Mr. Frodo. He can see through that storm, that evil cloud, and he sees the starlight. There's so many connecting points of this these three movies that I love it.
We'll
it's
take the Sam and Frodo back to the beginning.
well written.
It's at the beginning of the film. He says, Sam wakes up and says, "I've gone and slept too long. It must be almost nightfall by now." And Frodo says, "It's not even midday.
Yeah.
It's just that the days are darker now." And you get that whole light dark symbolism. Obviously, is a trope that's been done many times before, many times since. But in this movie, it really just makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of Sam and Frodo, one of the first, maybe the 12th time I cried during this movie was when Sam got sent home by Frodo, as Frodo is corrupted by Gollum.
It's interesting.
Convinced that Sam is going to steal this ring from him, which of course Sam would never do. And Sam,
he's just holding it for safekeeping.
I know,
but
devastating.
At the same point, Frodo, I think, over the years, people always say Sam is the hero, right? And that's true. Sam is a major hero, but Frodo is the only creature that could have resisted over this journey, the ring. And even for the 6 hours or whatever it may be that Sam has the ring, and he's passing it over and it connects to him.
Yeah.
Think of this, 13 months since the time that Frodo left the Shire and made it back home. Sam wouldn't have made it. Pip and Merry, they wouldn't have made it. The men wouldn't have made it.
Pippin wouldn't have made it to Bree.
Merry and Pip would have lost it at Bree and got some pipe weed and ale.
They would have traded it.
Just traded the ring for a barrel of pipe weed.
But I think the Frodo still hero of the story, but at the same time, it's really interesting that he's going to take it. And who knows, like if something would have happened, the story could have gone much differently based on the power that the hobbits have against the power of the ring.
Right.
Yeah, two incredibly strong characters. Sam and Frodo both absolutely need each other for the adventure. We need Frodo's strength and determination against the power of the ring, and we need Sam's undying, unfaltering love for Frodo to make this journey possible. And they get to wear cute little costumes and dress up like little orkies, which is adorable.
That's true.
Yeah, that is fun. One thing I do also really enjoy about the ending of this trilogy is it ends exactly how it begins.
Yeah.
So we have the same exact shot of Isildur being finally manipulated by the ring. Same exact emotion with Elijah Wood.
He does really well there.
About to drop, the ring over Mount Doom, and it's just the poetry to it all is just marvelous. I think something similar they also do is in that initial shot of Smeagol, and what's his brother's name? Beagle or
Deagle?
Deagle.
Hey, his cousin Deagle.
Deagle, Seagull, Deagle.
Yeah. Literally the same exact choking scene is what Frodo does to Smeagol when he's outside Shelob's lair, and the parallels. Yeah, the parallels are just marvelous to watch.
Oh, that opening scene, by the way, we skipped over that opening for his storyline, Smeagol's storyline. That's just incredible. Also, Andy Serkis dressed up as him in a costume as a hobbit-like creature. What did you guys think? Is that what you expected? Upon first seeing it?
Could you do that today? Would that be... I mean, I'm not talking about like problematic stuff. There are plenty of problematic new age things about this film that could definitely be fixed. Not that they would ever reboot or remake it if you ever touch it again. Anyone out there in Hollywood who's definitely listening to our podcast, don't touch this at all.
Oh, they're definitely not in
a prequel TV series.
They're not in development of a new Warner Brothers trilogy. That's definitely not happening in 2029. I don't know, maybe.
No, don't. You know what? I'm so infuriated by you saying that. I forgot my point.
If it's bad, stab me in the face like a Nazgul.
The Witch King.
Oh yeah.
Miranda Otto. I wonder how many takes she did for that, because it's just
That's
one
pretty
of the most iconic stabbings of all time.
Yeah, it
no,
really is.
the opening scene. I mean, think about it. You've got a decent amount of war and violence in the films, but at the end of the day, it's all fantastical, and it's not like there's lots of gore in these films. So you could potentially take not a child, but definitely maybe 12 years old. Was it PG-13 when it came out in theaters?
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. But to take your 13-year-old to Two Towers and then a couple years later try to take them again and see this opening scene where a brand new character is just forcibly choking out another life in the first 5 minutes. I don't know if you could really handle that the same way these days.
Sure, you could.
I mean, you
murder
never
all over the place.
Well, I would say, Chris, it definitely is very effective. Like the
That's
sound, the sound quality of those final moments of Deagle are just heart wrenching. The ding, ding, and then he goes silent, and then it immediately goes into this is what Gollum has become. And he says, "They call us murderer," and I'm like, "You literally murdered him." Like, of course they did.
No, he took back his birthday present.
That's true.
Valid.
It was his birthday, Deagle.
That's true, yeah.
The sheer absence of remorse, though, is what is really intriguing to me for like the development of Gollum in that moment.
Yeah,
it's just perfect for who the character is.
Jake, say sheer absence of remorse again. That is
sheer absence of remorse.
Wow. Yeah, to see the power of the ring so quickly affect Smeagol.
Yeah.
When, as Chris was saying a minute ago, and Deagle.
Yeah.
Like
Beagle?
Frodo able to hold on to this ring for years and years and years, and Smeagol and Deagle just boom, instantly corrupted by the ring. Frodo and Sam are special little guys. Hi, Chris.
I have a question for the group. Andy, real quick fact checker. I think you're the lore master here. How old is Smeagol? Isn't he like 600 years old?
Yeah.
Give or take.
All right.
How is he so smart in this movie? Because I know the ring prolongs his life. It keeps him drawn to the madness. It lets him keep his facilities about him, even though he's going, batshit crazy. But at least he's alive and has his own autonomy. When he loses the ring, shouldn't the ring's effect start to kind of wear off? Should he not be like, I don't know, dying? I mean, we saw Bilbo obviously gets much, much older after he stops holding onto the ring, but Bilbo's only so old. Smeagol's 600 plus years old as a creature. Shouldn't he be like withered up on the side of Mount Doom at this point?
I wonder if it's because he was so young when he got it, where it prolonged him for so long that then he lost it, 50 years ago prior to the Lord of the Rings movies. And I don't know. I almost think that like it's still prolonging him, because what is the easiest way for Sauron to get the ring back? And it's through Smeagol. So I wonder if the ring is still prolonging him in some way, or maybe it's the madness that's been drawn to him to get it back. I don't know.
I'm gonna throw an analogy at you, Chris. Have you heard of a guy named Darth Maul? A little bit late, more recent of a franchise, but Darth Maul.
I've heard of half of him.
Well, that's the only half you need to know, because that's the half.
You know about the spider legs?
Oh, who doesn't know about the spider legs?
Spoilers for Clone Wars season 4.
Anyhow, point is his hate, his lust for power, he keeps him alive, and with it, I don't know.
So storytelling. Smeagol has the Force, the dark side of the Force.
No, Jake's just saying that
the
hatred kept Maul alive even after being split in half and falling through an entire nuclear reactor. The ring is keeping Smeagol alive.
I feel like the ring, also the Gollum side of him, which I think is almost the ring itself, right?
Oh, that's interesting.
And he keeps it. Right, he lets the Gollum back in, and at the end of the second movie.
That's true.
I just feel like there's something. So maybe
the ring never is dying.
Maybe
without the
or
ring.
At least locked away.
Or locked away. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay.
But he is the hero of the story. I know I
He
say
is.
Sam's the hero, but actually,
the
Gollum
best
the
finger
hero.
scene of all time.
I love chomping fingies.
I can think of at least.
And then
16
Elijah Wood,
better
you're like,
finger
oh, I
scenes.
feel so bad for him. And then was like, wait, 30 seconds ago, he tried to end humanity.
Yeah.
I was like immediately sympathy because he's like,
The ring is mine. It's like the first complete sentence he said in a week. The ring is mine.
Thank goodness for old Gollum chomping off fingers. That was a fun CGI scene where we had invisible Frodo with CGI Gollum. So it's just like this weird floating CGI creature fighting nothing. I enjoyed watching that.
That held up surprisingly well. And actually, I took a notice of all the special effects in this movie. I have notes, obviously, about the tower, the eye exploding, which looks so cool even to this day. Even, riding into Minas Tirith for the first time when it's all white and gleaming, the special effects look so good there.
Can I comment on that really quick, Chris?
On specifically Minas Tirith? Go ahead.
Just that. So a big change that you see throughout the movies is I feel like they did try and emphasize these giant spectacle of scenes when you ride up to somewhere, because we see Minas Tirith and we didn't really know it at the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring. When Gandalf rides in and then he kind of goes around, it looks like a city, right? And then the spectacle
grandeur,
of Minas Tirith, the beaming white city. I love that. Keep going.
I was just gonna say this movie has my not least favorite special effect, maybe the funniest of all time, the one that truly does not stand up. You probably don't know what I'm talking about, and if you're listening at home, go watch it.
Can I guess? Can I guess? Okay, can I get 2 guesses? I need to.
It's not really how guessing works, but okay.
Number 1 is Deagle holding on to the fishing pole at the beginning of the movie. Okay.
That does look kind of lame, but
number 2 is when all of the orcs fall back into the depths of the earth.
No, that's just badass. What are you talking about?
All right. I lose.
Everyone, including
What was it then?
the scene, you go look at it afterwards. All the Hoopla and the Hoopla audience is Frodo running into the entrance of Mount Doom. It's just a second and a half of some of the worst special effects that I cannot believe made it to wax. It just looks so silly. And Mount Doom itself looks so freaking cool. But there's just something about...
Is it the way he runs?
It's like the diagonal parallel running.
It's like the panoramic transition angle. Yeah.
Where his steps, he'll take a step, but then his foot will glide and he'll take another step.
It looks like in a video game where if you're strafing but also moving forward, it looks like you're running diagonal and you don't really move your body. It's very funny. Go look at it. We'll get a clip out. But that's the funniest to me. But everything else holds up really well. Obviously, we can talk ad nauseum about the prosthetics, the actual live acting, all of the props used for all of the actual fighting that was done. Some CGI magic, certainly. It's not like they had thousands and thousands of people out there, but they did have hundreds and hundreds of people out there.
Yeah, incredible battle scenes. Do you think that the Battle of Minas Tirith was better than the Battle of Helm's Deep? What are our thoughts there?
By sheer level of the multitude of elements that they had in Minas Tirith, I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
So I think
what were some of those elements that you liked the most, Jakey?
They just had everything. I was ranting on it earlier. They literally incorporated every fantasy being into a single battle scene. And also, the thing that was pretty great about the Battle of Minas Tirith is there was always moments of back and forth. In which, there was great fluctuation between. So you had the orcs, then they're being held at Minas Tirith, then they break through with Gron, which I don't know how they didn't see Gron. It's like the biggest battering ram in all of Middle Earth. Anyhow, so that happens. Then the Riders of Rohan show up.
Oh wait, before that, Jake. One of my favorite small moments. Once again, you have some breathing in the middle of these epic battles where Gandalf is sitting with Pippin, and they're banging out the door for the inner keep, and they're about to take out all of Minas Tirith. And Pippin says, "What, Gandalf? What happens after death?" And he says,
"The White Shores."
"White Shores. It's not the end here." And it's just such a beautiful moment. And then, bam, you hear the horn, right? It was like sometime around then. And then
the music then is Into the West. It's a theatrical version, slow kind of strings version of Into the West. You hear it in the background. It's your first little tease of the movie's climax, or the movie's conclusion. And such a cool, that's one of my favorite little scenes. I'm glad you brought it up.
It's beautiful. That's another cry scene right there. Just a quick little cry.
Yeah.
Also, by the way, how about you see the Witch King of Angmar with this sword that catches on fire, and then he's like wizard, and he blows up his staff. And I don't know how he did that, but that was pretty cool too.
He cast a booming blade. That's how he did that.
That's true. That's true. That was a natural 20.
Can you break it down for us again, Chris?
No, there wasn't much D&D there going on. Gandalf just gets waxed. It's a total party kill.
And then Jake, to your point, then you hear, ooh, you hear the horns of Rohan, and then one of the best inspirational heroic moments of the King of Edoras running across with his sword.
Right now, for death.
Some all-time great pre-fight speeches we get in this movie.
I want to mention something. I learned something in this rewatch.
Okay. We promote learning. Yes.
I have never had subtitles. Okay. And I did not know they were saying death.
I learned that same thing today.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. I thought they were just screaming. I thought they were yelling, ah.
Yeah, I never knew it was death.
Really?
And when I learned they were yelling death, that's even more epic. Like, that is incredible. Even Mary is yelling, "To death I ride," and it doesn't matter because he's trying to save Middle Earth. And that's why this movie is so epic.
It's incredible.
This movie, Return of the King, and we have barely talked about the king at all. We need to do a little Aragorn talkaroo.
Absolutely. Which is why I was bringing up the pre-battle speeches, because that speech he gives at the gates of Mordor.
Oh, it's almost like that's gonna be
not this day.
Might be my ending.
A quote.
It might be my ending quote.
Well, then I won't spoil it. Also, I don't remember the quote, but I just remember the feeling that he instilled in me as I was watching that. I got to go buy a new TV because I ran through my fucking TV when they started charging. I stood up and I just blasted forward. What an incredible speech, knowing that they're all going to die, face this unbeatable enemy with just the glimmer of hope that maybe this will allow Frodo to succeed in his quest. My God.
And my desktop background, as he's looking backwards, he's looking back and he says, "For Frodo." And then the two hobbits yell, "For Frodo," followed by Gandalf, followed by everyone to their death, just for Frodo. That is
the fact that we get
the fellowship
hobbits
back
running first is one of my favorite shots of this movie. Is the little tiny hobbits running first, showing that these little guys, they were kind of afraid at the beginning of this adventure, and now they are the bravest of all the men, this whole army of men behind them. They're brave, of course, they're ready to go fight to the death, but these two little hobbits are the bravest among them, ready to give their lives for Frodo and Sam, even though they're physically incapable of contributing to this battle, as immediately they get overrun by all the rest of the men. So you see them lead the charge and then immediately get overtaken.
I love that.
And
which one of them is leading, Jim?
I would say Mary and or Pippin.
It's actually a good question. Who is kind of in front there? Are they just kind of side by side? One of them's kind of...
I think it's Mary because of his
I
recent tribulations with Éowyn and everything. And we are not getting out of this without talking about Éowyn more.
Oh yeah, for
let's
sure.
talk about
I also
Aragorn
agree.
for a second.
I also want to talk about how, the buildup prior to that dart towards the orc army. Absolutely wonderful when we see the messenger, the blind messenger that has an extreme amount of
Sauron. I love that scene.
Yeah, horrible periodontal disease.
Oh, that must have been a nightmare for our resident dentist.
When Aragorn chops off his head, that was such fire.
Yes.
What a way to inspire and galvanize the troops than by literally having zero negotiations. This is what freaking 300 did with the Spartans. Same exact deal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's textbook. It's textbook.
Yeah. I that is a kingly moment, a moment of leaders, certainly. And this is after he gets the sword and dons the armor and leads the army. I mean, these are all kingly attributes. And at the start of this movie, he's done nothing to try and contribute to his legacy. And over the course of just one movie, we've seen him for 2 movies be a hero, but we have not even seen him glimpse the thought of being a king. So the fact, I know the movie's called Return of the King, but the fact that they can take his overarching character development and then also have this mini story of him coming to terms with him acknowledging his lineage and acknowledging how to be a king and what it means to be a leader of people is such excellent storytelling. Not only to have that 1, 2, 3 of Aragorn being some shady guy, a ranger that takes jobs when he can and helps people when he must, to being that king, and then also the little arc that we have within this one movie. It's just masterful character development, and he's so freaking cool.
Well, and I love the way that he actually confronts the enemy of his line, right?
Yeah.
Like the ultimate enemy, which we'll see a lot here in Rings of Power season 2. I hope it's good. Please be good.
The Traders of Men.
Just being able to see how he takes the Palantir and he looks Sauron in the eye and he shows him the blade that cut the ring from his finger, and then he's also the one that cuts off the mouth of Sauron and at the front of the gate and then leads the army in. It's super heroic, and I like the ending too. Some people don't love the ending of Return of the King. I get that maybe it's slow in some ways, but to me, it is a perfect ending to such a grand 13-year period, right? With him dawning, becoming the king. And we don't need to talk about the ending just yet of
Who doesn't like that?
People think it's long. It's long. It's long to
I just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to
him. Get him, Chris.
I just want to talk to him, Chris. But
yeah, tell him how boring the rest of the movie is. They must love the ending.
Also, that song, beautiful lyrics from Tolkien. It's written. He writes the song in the books.
That he sings,
and he sings it, and supposedly he makes the tune. Okay, so I appreciate that from Viggo Mortensen.
I actually have a small plot point gripe.
Oh no,
with that particular scene.
Okay,
if we want to talk about it now,
sure.
I just think it's somewhat hilarious that he gives this great speech about this day is not just for one man; it is for all men. The fourth age has begun. We've driven back the orcs. The
now bow down to me.
It is all about the men now. It's the dawn of the man. And then immediately sings a victory song in this ancient Elvish language.
Yeah,
of the people that are leaving Middle Earth and did almost nothing.
The common man does not get anything.
That's what I'm saying. All those people that just survived war are up there like, why is this guy singing in freaking Elvish? What's going on?
And then he has everybody bow down to these hobbits. They're not men either.
Well, come on. Gosh, I love that scene so much. Oh my gosh,
that is a beautiful scene.
You bow to no one.
That's a beautiful.
If you're not crying,
scene.
You're not trying. That's in that scene. That's just
he bows. Then Arwen bows, the new queen, right? And then the whole of. And the thing about the beauty of that is, no one in the Shire will ever know, other than Rosie,
right?
Of all the trials and tribulations these hobbits have been through. Each individually, it's not just Sam and Frodo. Like Jamie talked about, like Merry and Pippin are the heroes of Middle Earth, right?
So when they're 13 months to the day and they're riding on horseback back to the Shire, I've never realized, I never put two and two together. They passed that grumpy old man that's sweeping his porch.
Oh, yeah.
It's the same guy that sold out the Bagginses when the Dark Riders were coming for them the first time. He was like,
when he said
Baggins is here.
that way.
Yeah, Baggins,
Yeah.
Shire. And yeah, he's I made that connection today. Okay, I'll stop talking. Please say your pieces on Aragorn. I know you have more to say, but we need to talk about Éowyn, and I have the perfect transition from Aragorn to Éowyn when we're ready for it.
Oh, we're ready.
Well, no, I don't think we're ready yet because I do want to. We didn't. We haven't talked about. We briefly talked about the undead, but how spectacular was the execution of the undead sequences?
Very cool.
This could have come off really cheesy, right? And actually, in the extended, I do think it's a little odd when all the skulls are kind of falling down on him.
The skulls. Where were the other bones? No femurs, no ribs, just skulls.
I didn't get that as much, but the way that sequence progresses, and it's actually pretty quick, right? From when they go into the mountain, when they lock the door behind him, right? And also I do love the Gimli moment where he's blowing away the hand. By the way, just shout out
I've seen the day where an elf will go underground, but a dwarf will not.
A shout out to the Return of the King PlayStation 2 game. That was such a good level.
Good. The replayability.
Dimholt, by the way.
Tim Holt. But also, I just love how the way that this visual effects work with when they come out of their homes and it's built up and it's actually human civilization and you look across every one of the undead and they're just decayed humans. It just looks really good. I that could have not worked, but I thought it was just really well executed.
Stacking on top of that, which also could definitely not have worked, but also worked out kind of successfully, was the fact that it totally seemed like that entire scene was futile and for nothing.
Yeah.
All for none. But then they leave the cave and they're approached by the Ghost King yet again. And then he's like, okay, we will fight for you. And I don't know how they were able to somehow remedy that, because it could have been a total disaster, but it somehow worked successfully. And I mean,
that was, I wonder if they had more scenes for that. It was a really strange editing. Why the skulls at first at all? Like, were they trying to kill the king? Like, oh, we don't want to fulfill our oath. We're cool. How about you just die in this pit with a bunch of skulls? And then, like, was that a trial? Could only the king of men do that? I don't know. You're right, Jake. That is a very strange thing.
I'm glad they cut that for the theatrical.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the skull scene makes little to no sense,
and it kind of makes it more climactic when it's like it ends with "What say you?" and then the next time you really see them is when they bust off of the Corsair ships and just take out the whole army. So it gives a little bit more to to guess what's going to happen.
Right. What an incredible shot when they bust out of the ships and Aragorn's just standing there, staring down the enemy,
poster,
knowing what's coming
as usual.
Yeah.
Oh, I love
I love that orc. Yes.
There, he says there's knife work to be done. That's so badass.
Also, I'm talking about the orcs really quickly. I love the different commanders of the orc army. That main commander that's in Osgiliath that kills Faramir's captain, as well as he steps aside. The design, once again, Rings of Power has brought the orcs back in a way that reminds me of this movie.
Yeah, the attention to detail with costume design is also something that we overlook when we talk about Lord of the Rings, but man, it cannot be neglected because it is just it's the paramount. It's the precipice of costume design. I mean, it's so good.
I don't think we've talked much about Rings of Power in this review so much yet. And quick roundtable discussion. Do we think the Men of the Mountains, the Oathbreakers, are at all going to be involved with Rings of Power?
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, No, they will be. But unfortunately, my initial theory was Hallbrand was the leader of the men on the mountain. So
I remember that being your
spoilers, he may not be. He's not.
Well,
spoilers
he's
for Rings of Power season 1 right now.
Yes.
Yeah, we
He's
still
not.
get to see.
By the way, he's not.
Yeah, if you haven't watched Rings of Power,
I thought that was a good theory. Come on,
listen to our Hoopla.
Great
It's a
theory,
great
great
theory.
theory.
We still have to look forward to in Rings of Power the men who become the ring wraiths and
Yes.
the men who become the ghosts. We've probably already met at least one of those characters. The child is one of them. Who is he going to be?
I was
we'll
thinking
see.
that too. Yeah,
But he's certainly going to be one of them. But that's enough about Rings of Power. That's months away. Tune in for the Hoopla podcast about the Rings of Power season 2 coming this summer.
And what's your transition for Eowyn?
Well, you've now given me another transition. Eowyn, as a character, really comes alive in this third film, and for good reason. I have not read the Lord of the Rings trilogy in book form. It's one of my few regrets in terms of being a nerd. I'm going to get to it, I promise you.
Andy Serkis audiobook.
Maybe I got the
So
audiobook.
read it like a man.
I do have it downstairs. I have the
I need you
collector's
to hear
edition
Andy
downstairs,
Serkis
but
sing about Tom Bombadil.
I play that as my going to sleep music anyway, so I've definitely heard it before. But I need to read them, and I will. I mean, obviously, I am no man. That's a huge plot point for the film. Anyone that says it's like cheesy or like technicality, like who cares? That's story writing, whatever. But is Eowyn as strong a character in the book as she is in this film?
That's a good question.
Jamie.
I'm asking the only reader, I think.
Wow. Andy, you haven't read it?
I am halfway.
Are you just displaying it?
No, I am displaying it because I'm halfway through it. I am about 3/4 way through two. I am. I'm about 3/4 way through Two Towers. Just past March of the Ends, by the way. Yeah. So
Nice.
I haven't read the
I
third.
don't. It's been a few years since I've read it, and I don't remember Eowyn having much of an impact on me in the story in the book as much as she does in the movie. I think they focus on her in very special ways in the movie, and they have those scenes, those dream sequences between Eowyn and Aragorn, and those private conversations between Eowyn and Elrond that I think really make her character strong in this movie specifically. And I mean, she's a good character in the books, if I remember correctly, but she didn't leave a lasting impact on me from reading the book.
At least in Two Towers, I feel like they really heighten Eomer's character, played by Carl Urban here.
Yeah, that's true.
Also,
Hell
Carl
yeah.
Urban
The
is
boys.
very cool, and he's cool in this movie too.
Oh man! Speaking of Carl Urban, speaking of this summer, The Boys season 4
Just got announced.
My god, is it June 13th yet? Okay, please proceed with Lord of the Rings.
Well, so Eowyn, when early on, before they even leave, before they leave Rohan, or what's that called? Edoras, yeah. She's taking that nap, just kind of after the party in the middle of the mess hall.
Oh my gosh, I picked up on that too. I love it.
Has a dream
Yeah.
about a great wave and a great light behind her, but she can't turn around. That to me is screaming Rings of Power. Obviously, we know the fall of Numenor, the great wave, the great light, all of those things. Now, why is Eowyn having that dream?
Okay, I looked this one up though.
Did you?
I did. So Eowyn ancestry goes back to the Numenorians, and the Numenorians have the ability of foresight. And so that's kind of what the Queen of Numenor in Rings of Power, she keeps dreaming about the wave. And in the books, it's not Eowyn, it's actually Faramir.
Is it?
Yeah, that has a dream of the wave. But it's of foresight of, I guess, in the movies, of the impending doom of men, which I think is such an awesome small callback. But it just seems like, oh, she's scared before a battle, but it's also a connection with the lore of Middle Earth too. those are the small moments I think they do really well.
Well, she is scared of battle, but she goes to battle anyways. And I want to make it a point during our recording here to say that I never really took Éowyn for granted, I guess. I mean, I understand that she's really important. She kills the Witch King of Agmar. That's such a cool scene on its own. But even the smaller scenes, when she's fitting Merry for his armor and tells him, you won't kill many orcs with a dull sword, off to the smithy with you. And then right after that, we're talking about Carl Urban's character. He says, you shouldn't encourage him. War is the province of men, which is huge foreshadowing, by the way. But even then, she's like, well, you should have heart. You should have courage. Why not? And she's the one that, disobeys her father's orders. She wants to go out and fight. I take for granted is the wrong word. I guess here's it is. I never appreciated how good of a character she was, especially with Miranda Otto's acting involved there. And also, to take this in a bit of a humorous way, I think, sadly, she's in love with Aragorn, right? I mean, who isn't? But Aragorn, masterclass in letting a girl down easy. There's that one scene when Aragorn's about to go through the mountain pass to Dimholt, and she's like, "You can't leave now. What are you doing? We have a battle tomorrow."
Yeah,
and he's like, "Why are you awake? What are you doing? Go to bed." And she's like, "Do you not know?" And he's like, "Oh wait, she's in love with me. I get it. I'm hot.
I get it. I'm Strider, the rider from the north."
And he masterclass, just perfect execution here. He touches her face, goes, everything you ever thought about with me is but a shadow of a thought and not real. It is but a dream. And then goes, I have wished you joy since I first saw you.
Yeah.
And walks away.
Damn.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And she's left to her own devices.
Ruthless.
Poor
she's like,
Éowyn.
She becomes a ghost. He straight up murdered her in that moment.
I think she channels that into the rage of going into battle and fighting.
And just, I am no man.
Gordon.
Oh yeah.
A woman's hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. But bigger moments than that. Talking with her father, I think she is kind of the underlying reason why her father even decides to answer the beacons. I mean, he's very against it. Where was Gondor? Where was Gondor? But once the beacons are lit, she sees Éowyn, is hoping that he'll make the right decision. I think that's when he says, and Rohan will answer. And I think she is such a big part in the third act of this trilogy, when in the second act, I really just kind of a maybe casual love interest, not much to do. And then they just take that and just exponentially multiply it. It's really great to see here. And though the movie does not pass the Bechdel test, it is a very strong female character, and it's a great thing to see.
Absolutely. I did describe Arwen a minute ago as I was talking about Éowyn. So,
I was wondering, the dream sequences.
I don't know any characters' names, apparently. Mary, Pippin, they're the same.
Hey,
Arwen,
question.
Éowyn,
What
they're the same.
about Arwen?
Faramir, Boromir, they're the same.
They do. There are a decent amount of names.
Question, Jamie, what about
answer-
Arwen though? Like, there's not much of Arwen in really any of these movies. I mean, there's the, the few scenes that are really with Elrond kind of reforging the blade, kind of giving some history to the elves. But overall, and she's not a big character, at least in the first in Fellowship or halfway through.
Well, she
Two
saves
Towers
Frodo.
in the books. No, you're talking
she
about
doesn't really show
Galadriel.
up.
Oh, it is Galadriel.
Yeah, but yeah, she's an interesting character that kind of just like pops in to say, oh, there's still elves around other than Legolas.
Yeah,
I think she serves a beautiful purpose in this story to, just enhance the like you were saying, the elves have now left Middle Earth, right? They are gone. The age of men is rising, and to show that there is some connection between the men and the elves, and I don't know what I'm saying. I'm flustered, man.
It's okay.
I got Arwen and Éowyn
Arwen and
wrong,
Éowyn.
and
They're both
I don't know what
great.
I'm talking
you're gonna be
about
roasted
anymore.
online.
Yeah,
for that.
I'm gonna roast
fucking-
you.
Can we delete this episode, please?
Arwen's not in the movie except for the very beginning when she makes the decision to stay, and then of course the end, the romantic scene. Funny enough,
and
this
the
movie,
sword reforging scene.
Well, true. That's a very good point. Yeah, Narcial. Liv Tyler gets the third credit in the main on end here for this film, which is funny. And to then see the likes of Carl Urban and Orlando Bloom and Sean Astin follow her, which is pretty funny. But obviously Liv Tyler, fantastic and amazing. But it's just kind of, I mean, that's it. Since we're talking about how little she is in this third film, it's funny that she gets the third credit.
All right, I think we. Oh, Jake, go.
Jake, I was gonna mention. No, she, in a sense, she does save Frodo in Fellowship because she cascades the
that's
horses
true. Yes,
down the river.
I thought you were talking about the starlight saving him from Shelob.
No.
Yeah,
no.
She does.
But what I will say is, the diversity of this cast isn't very extensive. All of that to say, the three prominent female roles, Galadriel, Arwen, and Éowyn, have such a significance in this film, and it's absolutely wonderful how Éowyn is the one to kill the Witch King. Like, I think that speaks such volumes. I mean, you could cast a million different people, but I think the sheer level of focus that it has on that moment really like sets her apart, and just
she feels
I
kind
think
of
it's inspiring.
Over the two films, she does feel kind of relatable though as a character, and you almost grow with her, and then she grows into finally becoming the leader of Rohan that she showed she was in Two Towers, leading the people away from the dogs, right, and leading the families.
I think that's a great point. Great point, Jake. Yeah, and
pretty messed up that you didn't include Shelob in the four main female characters. That's true.
Éowyn also gets
who would we kick out?
She gets her fairy tale ending. She does marry Faramore, and they have a kid, and it's love at first sight for Éowyn.
I was like, wait, Faramir and Shelob? Oh no.
No, Faramir and Éowyn. Yeah, it's really
still
barely explored in the film. And there's the 50-second cut scene where they meet in the House of Healing after both of them were in battle.
Yeah, really weird scene.
Yeah, I think they didn't finish that. Like, I think that there would have been a lot more to those sequences if they were going to put it in the final theatrical cut. Because it really feels like they just cut into that House of Healing, but then Pippin is still walking around the field, even though she's fine. Yeah. She looks like she's been healing for 2 weeks. There's something going on there.
That was weird. Yeah. That was weird. Good call on cutting that one. But true love is always out there. And then, of course, at the end of the movie, we get Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin back in the Shire, where they realize that they don't necessarily fit in. They can't go back to the life that they had before. They have seen too much. They've gone through too many adventures and seen the worst and the best of the world. And now they're back in the Shire, which is just a small, simple town of people living simple lives and finding joy in the little things. And it's a little hard for Frodo specifically to find the same joy that the rest of them have. A really powerful scene. And I think, as we were talking about the other day, J.R. Tolkien says that he didn't base his stories on the war, the real world wars. I mean, there's a lot in here.
Real world wars.
Say that 7 times fast. There's a lot here with soldiers returning from war, coming home as completely changed people, and not quite fitting in to the lives that they had before, the lives that they fought so hard to save. They risked and sacrificed their lives for what was left back at home, and now they no longer fit in with the home they have. Devastating.
I love that. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I think we're probably going to say the same thing. They are at the bar and at the the Green Dragon, and they're sitting there, and merriment all around them. They cheers to the struggle of 13 months, and then Sam, the one thing, right? He would have married her, and he's like, you know what? I got 2 swords and I took down orcs. I can do this. And he drinks his beer and the liquid courage, and then he goes and gets Rosie. I love that. That's a cool moment.
It's great.
It's beautiful. It's a little different than the ending of the book we get, which, not to spoil it for those of you who need to read it.
This is good.
But the Shire actually gets kind of destroyed.
Oh,
partially.
yeah. It gets way messed up. Yeah.
And so
Saruman makes his way there, right?
Yep. Yeah. Rather than dying on a spike, Saruman and Wormtongue make their way to the Shire, and that's where they have another encounter where they're finally defeated again, and all that stuff happens. So a little bit different of an ending in the movies than in the books, but I think it worked out really well for the story that they were telling in these movies, to have the Shire still remain this sanctuary,
like idealistic,
away from all the wars.
Right.
I love
sanctuary of like hope and whimsical, jovial life. Like
yeah, Jake, you're right. They return and they're all sitting at the bar and they all just went on this grand adventure. But when Sam finally drinks it and stands up to talk to Rosie, they're all like, "Oh shit, he's gonna do it!
He's gonna talk to a girl."
6 months ago,
they're all gonna laugh like,
yeah.
Frodo loves laughing.
Like, oh, he's talking to Rosie. It's the most interesting thing that's happened since we got back. Is the Grey Haven scene the same in the book? As we come to a close here,
the rings, the remaining elven rings, go off
at the port city.
Let's say yes.
Okay.
Okay. But hey, one other thing that I do really appreciate is, and they do it in the Hobbit trilogy too, but I really appreciate how it's all about, there and back again, and then it's about Lord of the Rings, and it's like the continuation of like, here's actually the story was all a narration from these 2 hobbits, right? And finishing that off, first of all, we all love maps, so they're drawing maps in there of Middle Earth. But when they go off, and when he hands that book back to Sam, and they cry a lot, and honestly, I cry with them, because that's a really emotional moment.
Absolutely,
over three movies that are pretty long, but in terms of how much content we get nowadays, of hours and hours and hours of different TV series, these 3 movies together are just so impactful and so emotional, that's just a great send-off. Like, it's a perfect ending to the trilogy.
And this is a perfect ending to the episode. So thank you all for tuning into this episode of the Hoopla podcast. We, of course, still need to give it the Hoopla official ratings. I already gave mine a perfect 11-1 out of 11-1 Hooplas for The Return of the King. So let's see what the other guys are thinking. Jake Laxer, our resident ghost. How are you going to rate this film?
I'm going to have to give this a 109 out of 11-1 Hooplas.
Hoopla.
The grandeur of this movie is just absolutely marvelous. Eye-catching from the opening scene till the credits roll. I mean, I love the music. I love the storytelling. I love the battles. I love the sheer inner struggles that Sam and Frodo and Gollum all experience together. I mean, everything about this is just a work and a masterpiece. And honestly, it deserves the 11 Oscars. So 109 for me, because we have the Frodo running into Mount Doom ice skating scene. We have Deagle holding onto the fishing rod. Daka Point. And so that's when we end up at 109, and it's fine. But all that to say, great films. I'll and I'm gonna go watch them again.
I hope you do. And Chris, the last time hopefully this will be the last time you watch this trilogy without having read the book. So, from the perspective of someone who has only seen the movies, how are you going to rate Return of the King?
I'm joining your camp, Jamie, on this one. I think this is a perfect film. I'm giving it the full 11-1 out of 11-1 Hooplas. Now, I'll say this.
Oh my God.
It's not my personal favorite movie of all time. Obviously, there are things that people, they see movies at the right time, they stick with them. We can have another podcast about that for Future in the Day. It's similar to Andy's Last Samurai. I mean, maybe that's his favorite movie, even if this movie, The Return of the King, is, I'm going to use a technicality here, Return of the King is the best movie ever made. What I mean by that is that the time, the effort, the research, the everything from the top billed actors all the way down to the location scouting, the props department, the special effects that still hold up 20, 25 plus years later. This might be the best movie ever made, crafted, delivered to an audience. I think that might hold true and still holds true for a long, long time. It's not my personal favorite movie. It's definitely top 3, but it is a perfect movie. I'm going to give it 11-1 out of 11-1.
Movie.
Hoopla.
Incredible.
Jake, did you have a comment on
the best movie ever made? But it will just.
Well, you said the special
Chris's
effects
hierarchy.
held up.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I forgot to dock the point for the weird Frodo.
No.
Okay.
Still the best movie ever made. But in Chris's hierarchy, it just has not quite reached the level of Flubber. So, Andy, what did you think about
Flubber was a
Return of the
really
King?
important time for me, okay?
I mean,
I like that little robot.
R.I.P.
hey, there's a few preeminent fantasy, series to me. And for me, my favorite characters in fantasy, I mean, you got like Luke Skywalker, and then there's Gandalf, and then there's Aragorn, and then there's Sam. And that's what this movie is. It's there's so many, and we've already talked about all the different great battle scenes and all, the spectacle, but it's so inspirational at so many different points. And the joy that I just get from watching this movie, I do think it's my favorite out of the 3. It is my second favorite movie overall. Some days it might be number 1, depending on, Saturday night, you just turn it on and you just watch. I was just going to watch a few scenes, and then I watched a 4.5-hour movie and I didn't even realize I did.
Whoopsies.
It's the quickest 4.5-hour movie of all time.
There's a handful of movies out there that are channel flipping must stops.
Yes.
This is absolutely one of them.
Flubber.
The first Ghostbusters. And you know what? I one thing we didn't really mention that I really love is the ending on Mount Doom as the lava is coming out of the mountain, and they're laying there, and they talk about, he doesn't remember like what water, even though he did have water a few scenes ago. He doesn't know what it tastes like. He doesn't know. And
Sorry, I gotta change my rating. 108. Oh, there's a few drops left. Have my water, Mr. Frodo. Frodo proceeds to waste half of the entire canteen.
The ring made him do it. All right,
That's true.
Give him a freaking break.
I love that ending for the actual series of them walking for 13 months and they're laying there. And you know what is better than the Hobbit eagles? The Lord of the Rings eagles. I love they're swooping in and they pick up the hobbits, and then you just go into the masterful ending. I don't know. I could just ramble about this movie for hours and hours, and I'm going to give it 11-1.
Let's go.
Beautiful.
If the Emperor in the throne room scene was in this movie, then it would be an actual perfect movie and be my number 1 favorite movie of all time. But alas, it does not have that.
Incredible. It is, without a doubt, objectively, in my subjective opinion, the greatest fantasy story ever written. I've said that many times, and I'll continue to say that until I'm proven wrong. there's a lot of great fantasy stories out there, but this is a single
They all
contained
came
story
from Tolkien.
that includes everything you could ever want in an adventure, in a story about love and the fight against good and evil. It has everything you need in a beautiful story, and no one will ever beat it.
Yeah.
So
I think that's true.
thank you, J.R.R. Tolkien, for I can't say his name right. J.R.R. Tolkien, thank you for writing such a beautiful story and leading to a world of fantasy with thousands and thousands of fantasy stories being written based on your beautiful world of Middle-earth. And Dungeons and Dragons wouldn't exist without it, so thanks for that.
Hey, also thank you, Peter Jackson, for executing on that vision in these 3 movies.
It's impossible task. Impossible task. And he decided to take it on.
So
and
almost more impossible than dropping a ring in a fiery volcano.
Wow.
Wow.
And with that, we will bring it to the end of this episode of Hobbit Hoopla. So thank you all for listening. Tune in next week. We've got all sorts of movies and TV shows that we'll be discussing. Follow us on social media to stay up to date with what we're doing. And as we end every episode, it is time for the moment of highest hoopla, the quote of the movie.
A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day. This day we fight. By all that you hold dear on this good earth, I bid you stand, men of the West.
Hoopla!
I love how Chris dropped his score for every deciliter wasted.
deciliter.
Yeah, it was like 3 deciliters.